So Muzzy, today we're making apple dumplings. How long have you been making apple dumplings?
Well, I've been married almost 63 years, and I expect I made my first apple dumplings within the first 5 years.
And where'd you get the recipe for this?
From Betty Crocker.
And from a cookbook given to you by
Papa. He gave it to me when we got married, and I've used it all through the years.
And have these apple dumplings been well received by family and guests?
They have been well received.
You've got a little bruise on your cheek. What happened to you?
Oh, I had a little fall. Just a little fall.
And what? We begin by paring the apples. An ordinary hand parer works fine for paring the apples also. Apples are pared, we need to core them. You can get a core at any grocery store. When you core the apples, try to get as much of the hard part of the core out as you can. Muzzy, you're making your dough. Is this the same as your pie dough?
Yes, it's just the same.
And how much flour do you use?
Well, for 2-crust pie, which will make 6 of our apple dumplings, I use 2 cups of flour, a teaspoon of salt, 2/3 plus 1 tablespoonful of Crisco.
Put in about half of the shortening.
Put in about half of the shortening, and you. The original recipe said to use your pastry cutter until it looks like fine. Let's see, what is that? What is it to say? Well, until it's
like peas or
very small. Very fine, like maybe like grain or something.
All right.
And then, but you do that. Make sure you get that all broken up really pretty small. Then the second, when you put in the second amount, you don't need to break it up quite so small.
So you put in 1/3 cup of shortening, and you're working that in now. Then you got to put in a second third plus 1 tablespoon.
That's right.
You've done that pretty finely. Those pieces of
they're pretty
shortening
fine.
are pretty small.
And then I'm going to do this.
All right. Put in the second third cup of shortening plus 1 tablespoon, and now you're going to break it up, but not quite as much as the first time. Is that right?
That's correct.
Dough is getting the right amount of water. It's if you get too little, it's too dry. It won't stick together. If you get too much, it's kind of hard. How do you do this?
Well, instead of following the instructions, you can tell how that is. I do this. I get the water running about like this, and I very quickly run this under the faucet, and I start stirring it in. Then I do it again. Now what I'm going to try to do is get just the amount of water that it takes to make the dough leave the sides of the bowl and stick together in a ball.
And
Still too dry.
And why are you stirring it with a fork?
Well, because that just seems to work better for me.
All right.
And you can tell it's still too dry. Look down in there.
Now, is this cold water or hot water?
It's cold. It must be cold water. It'd be better. I like to get it right directly out of the refrigerator, but I don't have it like that now. Now I'm getting to the point where I want to be real careful because, see, it's sticking together. But I don't want to take it out too soon or it'll still be too dry. But you see, I just put it under there just a minute and bring it out. I don't want to overdo that. Now, it looks to me like this is about ready. So what I'm going to do is try picking it up into a ball with my hand and see if it feels like it's suitable. I don't want it too dry, but, oh, this is just pretty much right, I think. It needs to need a little bit more of flour to make it work out well anyhow, so this is okay. Okay. See, it cleans the bowl.
Good.
That's what you want.
Makes a nice ball.
You want it to clean the bowl, make a nice ball. Now, I need flour.
Now you've put the dough on a floured cloth here, and basically what you're going to do is divide it into 6 equal parts. Is that correct?
That's correct, because I'm making the 6 apple dumplings.
And you're going to divide it before you roll it out?
No, I'm going to roll it out, I think, and then divide it, maybe.
Oh, I see.
Okay, because I think I can tell a little bit better about it then.
So you're going to divide it by just eyesight. You're not going to weigh it or anything like that.
Well, you could weigh it. It'd certainly be nice, but a lot of times people don't have scales.
Mm-hmm.
I never had any scales when I got married.
So now, how do you know how much to roll it out? How thin are you looking for, or how big?
About like it is now. This is the crust for a 2-crust pie.
Mm-hmm.
And so it ought to be bigger than what you would do for 1 crust.
It looks like it's probably about 12 to 13, maybe 14 inches in diameter, would you say?
I would say so.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's see if we can figure out about how to make this into 6 parts.
All right, now you've cut your dough into 6 equal parts.
To the best of my ability.
To the best of your ability. And you're folding the pieces back up. You're going to roll them out a second time.
I'm going to roll them out again.
Does that do any harm?
I don't
to
want
the
to handle
dough?
them a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not handling it a lot, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Just getting it. Okay. Now we're going to roll this out, and
now these will stick in the bottom of the pan, so we're using an 11 by 13 inch pan, and we're going to spray some non-stick spray in the bottom of it. Now here we have an apple ready to be filled with sugar and cinnamon and wrapped up. For 1/2 cup of sugar and 1½ teaspoon of cinnamon, all nicely blended together.
oh boy, does that smell good.
Going to fill the whole up with the cinnamon.
And I'm going to get some butter and put a little hunk of butter on the top. All
Looks
right.
like about
Now,
half a tablespoon.
Excuse me?
About half a tablespoon of butter, maybe a little bit less.
No, about more like a half a teaspoon.
Oh,
just
good.
a little chunk.
Mm-hmm.
Just a little chunk.
All right.
Okay, then the original recipe says to cut this into a square. So it's just perfect. I find that that's just totally unnecessary. I just take what I have here and I start folding it up and covering up my little apple.
Do you have to pinch that to make it
Yeah,
stay?
you're going to have to pinch it a little bit. It helps to put a little bit of water up on there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, see how pretty? It would be maybe a little bit prettier if it were cut in a square, but who cares? Right?
Right.
Okay. What I'm going to do is just touch this because I don't want it to get it all soaky wet.
Mm-hmm. What kind of apple have we used here?
We've used Granny Smith's.
Is that what you've always used?
I used, back in the olden days when I could get them, I used Wine Saps and Jonathan's. But I don't see those very much anymore, and I do see Granny Smith's. You want an apple that has a little bit of a tang to it, a little bit of, it's flavorful.
A little bit tart.
Tart, a little bit tart.
And you want to get the biggest one you can find?
No, it's better not to, because then you need more dough than you probably want to fix.
So you actually look for the smallest ones in the bin, don't you?
I look for the smallest ones. Because actually this is going to make a rich dessert. Because, you know, you're going to want to put either whipped cream or ice cream or just plain half and half on it. And because that just makes it extra luscious. And so it's a rich dessert, and you don't need it one any bigger than the smallest you can find.
There we have all 6 of our apple dumplings.
There they are.
Now we're going to need to put some stuff over them, aren't we?
We're going to have to put a syrup around them.
Here's our sugar.
Here's our sugar.
Now you're adding in 2 cups of water.
And how much butter?
Tablespoons of butter. And then you're going to add about a 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon to that.
That's actually just a little bit more.
And I think you're going to bring that to a boil and let it boil for 3 minutes. Is that correct?
I think that's correct, isn't it?
We're preheating our oven to 425. Need to stir that at all while it's boiling? Is it going to burn if we
No,
don't?
it isn't. I just do it just out of compulsion.
Now our oven is preheated to 425 degrees Fahrenheit, and we're going to put these in the oven and bake them for 40 to 45 minutes. Some half and half. Verdict, Dad?
Delicious.